The grand hall of the Galactic Council Station shone with its usual artificial brightness. Ambassador James stood at his designated spot, his tall frame making him stand out among the shorter alien representatives. After 15 years of service here, he had learned to hide his frustration behind a diplomatic smile. Today, that smile would finally break. The emergency meeting had been called after a distress signal reached the station. James watched the holographic display with growing anger as images of burning human colonies filled the air. The Syndicate ships, easily identified by their purple-striped hulls, fired mercilessly at civilian targets on Heaven's Gate, humanity's most successful colony world. "This is a clear act of war," James said, his voice steady despite his clenched fists. "The Syndicate has attacked a peaceful human settlement without warning or cause. We demand immediate council action." The council leader, a tall blue-skinned alien, raised all four of his hands in what James had learned was a gesture of dismissal. The council sees this as an internal matter between the Syndicate Alliance and human expansion zones. We cannot interfere. James felt something snap inside him. 15 years of careful diplomacy, of playing the good representative of a young species, of accepting the council's guidance. It all suddenly made sense. They had never been guides. They had been wardens. Internal matter. James let out a short, harsh laugh. Like the trade restrictions were guidance. Like the ban on human ships above certain sizes was for safety. Like the limits on our colony numbers were for sustainable growth. The council chamber grew quiet. In 15 years, no human ambassador had ever raised their voice here. James took a step forward, and he noticed with grim satisfaction how several representatives flinched back. "You're not stopping this because it's an internal matter," he continued, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. "You're stopping this because you're afraid. Afraid of what will happen when humanity finally shows its true strength." The council leader's skin shifted to a darker blue. "Ambassador, these accusations are what? Undiplomatic." James pulled out his communication device, making sure every alien in the room could see him press the emergency broadcast button. "Let me show you undiplomatic." His voice became ice-cold as he spoke into the device. "Authentication code Alpha 7 Delta 0. This is Ambassador James. The Council has refused aid. Heaven's Gate is burning. Initiate the Deathworlder protocol. I repeat, initiate the Deathworlder protocol." The silence in the chamber became absolute. Several representatives were rapidly sending messages, their tentacles or appendages moving frantically over their communication devices. "What have you done?" The council leader's voice trembled slightly. James looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes, optical sensors, or whatever passed for visual organs among the gathered species. "I just did what you always feared I would do. I called home. And now, after 300 years of playing nice, of accepting your restrictions, of pretending we didn't see through your containment policy, humanity is done being diplomatic." He turned to leave the chamber, then paused. "You know why you're really afraid? Because in all your 1,000 years of space travel, you never encountered a species that evolved on a world like Earth. A death world, you called it. A planet that should not have produced intelligent life. But it did. It produced us." The emergency lights began flashing throughout the station. Long-range sensors were detecting massive energy signatures from the direction of human space. James smiled, not his diplomatic smile, but the smile of a predator. "You feared what humanity might become," he said quietly. "Now you're going to face what we've always been. We didn't survive Earth by being nice. We survived it by being stronger, faster, and more cunning than everything else that tried to kill us. And now, thanks to your actions, the galaxy is about to learn why Earth is called a death world." As James walked out of the council chamber, alerts were already screaming across every system in known space. The Deathworlder fleet had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same. Deep beneath the red sands of Mars, Admiral Kate stood in the central command room of humanity's greatest secret. Around her, Screens that had been dark for decades blazed to life. The emergency code from Ambassador James had reached Mars just minutes ago, and already the massive underground shipyards were awakening. "Status report," Kate ordered, her voice carrying the weight of countless battles. A long scar ran down the left side of her face, a reminder of the last time aliens had tested humanity's strength. "All systems responding, Admiral," her second-in-command reported. "The hidden fleet is powering up. 300 years of preparation are ready to pay off." Kate walked to the main window overlooking the underground chamber. What had once been dark was now filled with light, revealing rows upon rows of warships. They stretched for miles under the Martian surface, each one bigger than anything the aliens thought humans could build. "Begin Operation Rising Thunder," Kate commanded. The words triggered a series of explosions across the Martian surface. Massive doors, hidden under millions of tons of red sand, began to open. The ground itself seemed to split apart as humanity's true military might prepare to rise. "Message from Earth Command," an officer called out. "All other facilities are responding. The lunar fleet is active. The Jupiter arsenals are online. The Belt Force is moving." Kate allowed herself a small smile. For centuries, humanity had played the role of the peaceful trader, the young species learning its way among the stars. All while building, preparing, and waiting. They had hidden shipyards in every corner of the solar system, disguised as mining operations or research stations. "Launch sequence initiated," the computer announced. "First wave ready for deployment." The first ship to rise from Mars was Kate's flagship, the Thunderchild. It was 5 kilometers long, armed with weapons the aliens had never seen. They thought humanity was limited to small ships, to simple weapons. They were wrong. "All hands to battle stations," Kate ordered as she walked to her ship. "Today we show the galaxy why they should have left us alone." As she reached the bridge of Thunderchild, reports flooded in from across human space. The Belt Force, thousands of ships hidden in the asteroid belt, was moving. The Jupiter arsenals, massive weapon platforms disguised as research stations, were powering up. The lunar fleet, buried under the moon's surface for centuries, was breaking free. "Message from High Command," her communications officer reported. "Heaven's Gate is still under attack. The Syndicate forces are bombing civilian areas." Kate's face hardened. "Plot a course to Heaven's Gate. Maximum speed. All ships, follow our lead." The Thunderchild rose through the Martian atmosphere, followed by hundreds of other warships. Each one was a masterpiece of human engineering, built with technology the aliens thought impossible for humans to have. "Admiral," her tactical officer called out, "the alien monitoring stations are detecting us. They're sending panic signals across their networks." "Let them panic," Kate replied. "They wanted to see humanity's true face. Well, now they'll see it." The fleet formed up around Thunderchild, a sight that would have been impossible according to all alien intelligence reports. Thousands of ships, each one carrying weapons that could crack planets. This was humanity's real power, hidden away until it was needed. "All ships report ready," her second-in-command announced. "The entire fleet awaits your order." Kate stood at the front of her bridge, looking out at the assembled armada. This was what humanity had built while pretending to be weak. This was what Earth's children had created while smiling and bowing to alien restrictions. "Send this message to all ships," Kate ordered. "The time for hiding is over. We are the children of Earth, born on a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned to be strong. We learned to survive. And now we'll show the galaxy what that means." The greatest fleet humanity had ever built jumped to faster than light speed, heading for Heaven's Gate. The Deathworlders were going to war, and the galaxy wasn't ready for what was coming. The Syndicate fleet orbiting Heaven's Gate had no warning. One moment, they were continuing their bombardment of the human colony. The next, space itself seemed to tear open as humanity's warships appeared. Admiral Kate stood on Thunderchild's bridge, watching the enemy ships scramble to respond. "Look at them panic," she said. "They expected to find helpless prey. Instead, they found wolves." The Syndicate ships were beautiful, all smooth purple curves and glowing shield bubbles. They were the pride of their civilization, protected by energy fields that could stop any energy weapon. But humanity hadn't brought energy weapons. "All ships, fire kinetic rounds," Kate ordered. "Show them how we fought wars on Earth." Thunderchild's main gun fired first. A simple piece of metal, accelerated to near light speed. The Syndicate's shields, designed to stop energy weapons, might as well have been paper. The round went straight through their flagship, leaving a clean hole from front to back. "Their shields don't work against physical objects," Kate's tactical officer reported, smiling. "Just like we thought." The rest of the human fleet opened fire. Thousands of kinetic rounds filled space, each one finding its target. The Syndicate's beautiful ships started breaking apart, their shields useless against humanity's primitive weapons. "Enemy fleet is trying to retreat," someone reported. "They're calling for help." Kate nodded. "Let them call. Let the galaxy see what happens when you attack Earth's children." More Syndicate ships appeared from hyperspace, rushing to help their dying fleet. They were met with walls of accelerated metal and clouds of space mines. Humanity had learned war on a world that tried to kill them every day, and they had brought that knowledge to space. "Admiral," her communications officer called out, "we're getting signals from the surface. The colony's defense forces are pushing back against the ground troops." On the tactical display, Kate watched as human soldiers engaged the Syndicate ground forces. The aliens had expected easy targets. Instead, they found themselves fighting people who had evolved on a high-gravity death world. The results were not pretty. "The enemy admiral is requesting to surrender," her second-in-command reported. Kate thought of the burning colony below, of the civilians who had died in the initial attack. "Tell them their surrender is accepted on one condition. They must broadcast everything they see here to their entire empire." The battle continued for another hour, but it wasn't really a battle anymore. It was a demonstration. Humanity showed the galaxy exactly what they had been hiding all these years. Their ships moved in perfect formation, their weapons fired with deadly accuracy, and their soldiers fought with the strength and skill born from Earth's harsh evolution. "Enemy forces have completely surrendered," Tactical reported. "Colony security forces have rounded up all ground troops. The orbital space is clear." Kate looked at the debris field that had once been the Syndicate attack fleet. "Send rescue ships to pick up survivors. Remind all personnel. We are not cruel. We are not monsters. We are just stronger than they thought." As human ships moved to help the surviving Syndicate forces, communication channels across the galaxy exploded with activity. The news was spreading. Humanity had revealed its true power, and it was far greater than anyone had imagined. "Message from Earth Command," communications announced. Similar attacks were happening at 3 other colonies. All Syndicate forces have either retreated or surrendered after seeing what happened here. Kate nodded. The galaxy was learning an important lesson. Earth was called a death world for a reason. Its people had evolved to survive against all odds, to fight against impossible challenges, to never give up. And now the galaxy would have to deal with the consequences of awakening humanity's full military might. "Set course for the next target," Kate ordered. "The Syndicate needs to learn that attacking human worlds has a price, and we're going to make sure the whole galaxy learns that lesson with them." Thunderchild and its fleet moved out, leaving behind a scene that would soon become famous across the stars. The day humanity showed why you don't provoke a species that evolved on a death world. The Galactic Council chamber had changed dramatically in the 3 days since Ambassador James had walked out. Gone was the calm order and quiet discussions. Now the vast room buzzed with panic as representatives from 100 worlds argued and shouted. James stood at his usual spot, but everything else was different. The other representatives no longer ignored the human ambassador. Instead, they kept glancing at him nervously, as if he might suddenly reveal another terrible secret. "The human fleet numbers are impossible," shouted the syndicate representative, his scales turning pale with fear. "They hid thousands of warships from our sensors, ships that should not exist." James stepped forward, and the chamber fell silent. "Would you like to see more proof of what's impossible?" He pressed a button, and new images filled the air above them. The battle at Heaven's Gate played out for all to see. The council watched in stunned silence as human kinetic weapons tore through the most advanced shields in the galaxy. They saw Earth-born soldiers overwhelming alien troops with pure physical strength. They witnessed the power they had feared for so long. "We received 6 new alliance requests this morning," James announced to the quiet room. "It seems some species have decided that being friends with Deathworlders isn't so bad after all." The council leader rose from his seat, his blue skin almost white with shock. "The balance of power that has kept peace for 1,000 years is destroyed. What do you humans want?" James looked around the room slowly. "Want? We wanted to be left alone. We wanted to trade fairly. We wanted to be treated as equals." His voice grew harder. "Instead, you tried to cage us. You tried to keep us weak. And now you're seeing why that was a mistake." New alerts flashed across the chamber's screens. More human fleets had been detected, moving with purpose through the galaxy. The Syndicate's allies were beginning to reveal themselves, trying to gather forces against the human advance. "Is this revenge, then?" asked a representative from a neutral world. "Will you destroy all we have built?" James shook his head. "No, we're not destroyers. We're protectors. That's what you never understood about us. Earth tried to kill us every day, but we didn't just survive. We learned to protect others who couldn't protect themselves." He brought up new images, showing human ships rescuing Syndicate survivors, providing medical aid to injured enemy troops. "We're strong because we had to be, but we're kind because we choose to be." The chamber doors opened, and Ambassador James smiled as Admiral Kate walked in. Her battle uniform and scarred face made several representatives step back in fear. "The Syndicate's main fleet has surrendered," Kate announced. "Their leaders are requesting peace talks." She looked around the chamber with hard eyes. "We suggest you all choose your next moves very carefully." James nodded to his old friend, then addressed the council again. "Here are humanity's terms. The containment policies end. All restrictions on human ships and colonies are lifted. And most importantly, the next time someone calls for help, you will answer." "Or what?" asked the council leader quietly. "Or we'll answer instead," Kate said. "And we won't be as gentle as we were at Heaven's Gate." The council chamber erupted in activity as representatives rushed to contact their governments. The galaxy's power structure was changing before their eyes. The careful balance that had kept humanity contained was shattered. James looked at the chaos around him and felt no satisfaction, only determination. "We're not the monsters you feared," he told the council leader. "But we are the guardians you never knew you needed." As emergency meetings were called and alliances shifted, one thing became clear to every species in the galaxy. The age of hiding humanity's strength was over. The Deathworlders had awakened, and the stars themselves would never be the same. Intelligence Officer Mike sat alone in his dimly lit office aboard Thunderchild, staring at the files spread across his desk. 3 days of non-stop work had finally paid off. The truth he'd uncovered was bigger than anyone had imagined. "Admiral Kate needs to see this," he muttered, gathering the most important documents. His hands shook slightly as he walked through the ship's corridors. What he found would change everything they thought they knew about humanity's place in the galaxy. He found Kate on the bridge, reviewing reports from the latest battles. She looked up as he entered, noting his troubled expression. "You found something," she said. It wasn't a question. Mike nodded, spreading the files across her command table. "The attack on Heaven's Gate wasn't random. Nothing about our history has been random." He pointed to the oldest document, a genetic study of Earth's life forms. "Look at this. Earth's entire evolutionary path was engineered. Kate's eyes narrowed. Engineered. By whom? The first ones, Mike replied. The species that came before all others. They seeded life across the galaxy, but Earth was special. He brought up more documents, showing ancient star charts. They made Earth harsh on purpose. They wanted to create something. Create what? Warriors, Mike said simply. Protectors. They knew they were dying out, and they wanted someone to guard the younger races that would come after them. He showed her images of human DNA compared to other species. Everything that makes us different. Our strength, our endurance, our ability to survive. It was all designed. Kate sat heavily in her chair. The syndicate knew this. Mike shook his head. No, they were just puppets. The real planners were the council leaders. For thousands of years, they've guided galactic politics, keeping everyone weak dependent. He displayed reports of council meetings from centuries past. They found Earth 500 years ago and recognized what we were. They were terrified. Because they knew we were created to be stronger. Because they knew we were created to replace them as guardians. Mike brought up footage from the recent battles. Look how we fight. We're powerful, yes, but we also protect. Even in victory, we help our enemies. It's built into us at a genetic level. The bridge was quiet as Kate processed this information. The attack on Heaven's Gate was meant to provoke a small response, Mike finished. They wanted us to reveal just enough military power to justify containing us permanently. Instead, he smiled grimly. Instead, we revealed everything. We did exactly what the first ones designed us to do. Stand up at full strength when needed. Kate walked to the viewport, staring at the stars. Does James know? I sent him the files an hour ago. He's presenting them to the council right now. Mike checked his tablet. The council leaders are trying to deny everything, but other species are demanding answers. The whole balance of power is shifting. Because everyone knows what we are now, Kate said softly. Not just strong, but purposefully created to be strong. To protect. Mike nodded. The first ones left messages in our DNA, in our instincts. They made Earth harsh not to kill us, but to forge us. Every predator, every natural disaster, every challenge, it was all to prepare us for this moment. Alarms suddenly blared across the ship. Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. The tactical officer reported. It's the remainder of the syndicate fleet. They're requesting protection. Kate raised an eyebrow. Protection? From what? From the Council's secret enforcement fleet, Mike said, checking his data. The syndicate leaders found out they were just being used. Now they're running to the only force strong enough to protect them. Kate smiled, and for the first time, she truly understood her own nature, understood all of humanity's nature. Well then, let's do what we were made to do. Protect the weak. Fight the bullies. Guard the galaxy. As Thunderchild moved to shield the former enemy ships, Mike watched with new understanding. Humanity hadn't just survived Earth's challenges. They had been created for them, designed to become exactly what the galaxy needed. Guardians strong enough to protect, but wise enough to show mercy. The Deathworlders had awakened not to destroy, but to fulfill their ancient purpose. The first one's plan, hidden for millions of years, was finally complete. The Orion Arm blazed with weapons fire as the largest space battle in galactic history unfolded. The Council's secret enforcement fleet had finally shown itself, bringing 10,000 ships against humanity's forces. They had expected to find a weakened human fleet, tired from previous battles. Instead, they found humanity at its finest. All ships, defensive formation Delta, Admiral Kate ordered from Thunderchild's bridge. Protect the Syndicate refugee ships. Show everyone what Earth's children were born to do. The human fleet moved like dancers in perfect harmony. 300 years of preparation had created crews who thought as one, who moved as one. The Council fleet's superior numbers meant nothing against such coordination. Enemy ships launching their main attack, Tactical reported. They're using their planet killer weapons. Kate smiled grimly. Just as intelligence predicted. Officer Mike, is everything ready? Mike stood at his station, his earlier discoveries about humanity's true purpose giving new meaning to this battle. Ready, Admiral. The first ones left us more than just strength. They left us their technology too, hidden in our DNA, waiting for us to advance enough to understand it. The Council fleet's massive energy weapons fired, sending beams of pure destruction toward the human lines. Every alien species watching expected to see the human fleet vaporized. Instead, they saw a miracle. A new type of shield flickered to life around the human ships. The Council's unstoppable weapons splashed harmlessly against barriers made with technology that hadn't been seen in millions of years. The first one's defensive systems are working perfectly, Mike reported, grinning. The Council's weapons can't touch us. Every secret they've hoarded, every weapon they've built. The first one's planned for all of it. Kate nodded. Then let's show them what Earth's gravity taught us about fighting back. All ships, switch to attack pattern Omega. Release the gravity bombs. The human fleet's response changed everything. Ships that had seemed primitive now released weapons that bent space itself. The Council fleet found their mighty ships caught in artificial gravity wells, crushed like tin cans by forces they couldn't fight. The Syndicate ships are safely behind our lines. Communications reported. Their admiral is asking why we're protecting them even after they attacked us. Tell them it's because this is what we were made for, Kate replied. Not just to fight, but to protect, to guard those who need guardians. The battle raged for hours, but its outcome was never in doubt. Humanity had spent centuries preparing not just their ships and weapons, but their minds and hearts. Every crew worked together perfectly. Every ship supported its neighbors. The Council fleet, for all its power, fought alone. Enemy fleet is breaking apart, Tactical announced. Their formation is collapsing. 80% of their ships are either destroyed or disabled. Mike checked his readings. The Council leaders are trying to escape in their command ship. They're heading for the system's edge. Kate stood from her command chair. Not this time. Thunderchild, set pursuit course. The Council needs to answer for 300 years of lies. The massive human flagship turned with impossible grace, its engines glowing with power, the first ones had hidden in humanity's future. They caught the Council leader's ship easily, holding it in place with gravity fields. Send to all ships, Kate ordered. The battle is over. Begin rescue operations. Help everyone you can reach, whether they were friend or foe. She turned to Mike. The first ones chose well when they made us, didn't they? Mike nodded, watching as human ships moved to help their former enemies. They made us strong enough to win any fight, but gave us hearts that would rather avoid fighting. Perfect guardians for a galaxy that needed protection more than it needed rulers. As the rescue operations began, news of the battle spread across every world. The Council's secret fleet was defeated. Their hidden weapons were useless, and humanity, the species they had feared and tried to cage, was helping even those who had just tried to destroy them. The Deathworlders had proven themselves to be exactly what the first ones had designed, the protectors the galaxy had always needed. 1 month after the Battle of the Orion Arm, the Great Hall of Earth's Parliament hosted representatives from every spacefaring race. The room buzzed with dozens of languages as former enemies sat side by side, all watching as Ambassador James took the center stage. The galaxy stands at a crossroads, James began, his voice carrying to every corner. The old council is gone. Their secrets are exposed. Now we must decide what comes next. Admiral Kate and Intelligence Officer Mike sat in the front row, their presence a reminder of how much had changed. The Syndicate representatives, once enemies, now nodded respectfully to them. The former council races sat quietly, their arrogance replaced by understanding. Humanity was created for a purpose, James continued. The first ones made Earth harsh not to punish us, but to prepare us. They needed guardians who were strong enough to protect, wise enough to show mercy, and brave enough to stand against any threat. He pressed a button, and holograms filled the air. They showed human ships protecting refugee convoys, human medical teams helping injured aliens, and human engineers helping rebuild destroyed worlds. "We call these the Deathworlder Accords," James announced, bringing up the new treaty. "Not because they're about death or war, but because they're written by those who survived Earth's challenges. We know what it means to face impossible odds. We know what it means to need help." The treaty was simple but powerful. Every species would have the right to develop without interference. Every call for help would be answered. And humanity would serve not as rulers, but as guardians, using their strength to protect rather than dominate. "Some of you feared us," James said, looking at the former council races. "Others tried to use us." His eyes moved to the syndicate delegates. "But today, we offer something different. A galaxy where the strong protect the weak. Where advancement comes through cooperation, not competition." Admiral Kate stood up, her battle-scarred face now a symbol of both power and mercy. "The first ones chose humans because Earth taught us something unique," she said. "We learned that true strength isn't about destroying enemies. It's about protecting friends." Mike joined them, carrying the final piece of evidence from his investigations. "We've decoded more of the first one's messages," he announced. "They didn't just make us strong. They made us curious, adaptable, and most importantly, kind. Because they knew the galaxy didn't need more conquerors. It needed guardians." One by one, representatives came forward to sign the accords. Former enemies became allies. Old rivalries gave way to new partnerships. The galaxy was changing, growing into something better than before. "There will still be challenges," James told the assembly. "There will still be threats. But now, when someone calls for help, they won't hear silence. They'll hear humanity's answer." As the signing concluded, Kate and Mike stood at a viewport, watching ships from 100 worlds orbit peacefully around Earth. "Did you ever think it would end like this?" Mike asked. "When you got that first distress call from Heaven's Gate?" Kate shook her head. "I thought we were going to war. Instead, we found our purpose." She smiled. "The first ones were clever. They made us strong enough to win any fight, but gave us hearts that would rather make peace. And now," Mike gestured at the gathered representatives, all celebrating the new era. "Now we do what we were born to do," Kate replied. "We protect. We help. We guard. Not because we have to, but because it's who we are." As the celebrations continued, news spread across the galaxy. The age of fear was over. The age of guardians had begun. Humanity had awakened not to conquer or destroy, but to protect and preserve. The Deathworlders had found their true purpose, and the galaxy was better for it. The call that unleashed the fleet had led not to destruction, but to a new dawn for all species. Earth's children had become exactly what the first ones had designed them to be, the guardians of a better future.